Welcome, everyone, to Eternal Life Plan. Thank you for joining me tonight to talk about my spiritual encounters and my experiences. Now, you probably can't see her. She's right here. There's Sugar Kitty getting ready to jump down, and Husky is over there. And I've got some pictures for you, so stay to the end because I have some really cute pictures to share with you. So, Holy Week, here we are, right? I mean, it just seemed like, a week ago it was Christmas. Now we're in Holy Week, the holiest week. I just love it. Oh, we've already got a comment. Oh, hi, Nicole. Thanks for jumping on. I will take all of your questions and comments at the end before we sign off. But I've got a lot to go over with you tonight. And I've been apprehensive about talking about some of the things that I'm going to talk about tonight because I know it will challenge your beliefs. It will challenge your beliefs in a big way. I have 3 videos I want to show you tonight because these videos are the first videos I have ever found that explains better than what I can explain my spiritual experiences. I started having spiritual experiences when I was 16 years old, and they have been peppered in my entire life, experience after experience. I've never been able to adequately put into words what it was like and what we've gone through. And we, meaning my son as well. And I've never found anyone who had similar experiences to me. Oh, there's little Husky. She's so much better, everyone. I am just so thankful to your prayers. For your prayers, I mean. She's a lot better. And I'll talk about her at the end. But I've never found anyone that had similar spiritual experiences that I have had. And recently, I came across a man who's not Catholic. He is a Christian. He was very much embedded into his church in North Carolina, and they, in essence, rejected him when he started talking about his spiritual experiences. He was told the very same thing I was told by priests, and that was, these experiences I've had are not from God, but from the devil, from Satan. And this man was told the very same thing. So I've come to the conclusion that if pastors and ministers and priests and bishops, maybe even the Pope, if they don't know how to explain it, then it must be from the devil. It must be Satan. I've had a Satan experience, and I'll share that again with you tonight. I've talked about it before, but I'll share it again with you tonight with some of the other spiritual encounters that I've had. But I see as more people are jumping on, I want to again say it one more time that what I'm going to share with you tonight will challenge every belief you have, whether you're Catholic or Christian or whatever you are that's watching. It will challenge all of your religious beliefs. I have never been able to get good answers from my pastors and from the priests that I've talked to. I've never been able to get good answers. So I can't tell you which is why I struggled so much with my near-death experiences, because I was told it was probably a dream. I was told it's probably your imagination. No priest would say to me, "Yeah, you had a real encounter with God." None of them would tell me that, which is sad. So, what we're going to talk about are my spiritual experiences, these 3 videos that I want to show you that explains a lot of what I've encountered too. And the 3rd video is from um, she's a religious studies expert who went to the Vatican to uncover Vatican archive documents on many different things. And I'm going to play that video of her. She was not raised Catholic. She became a Catholic as a result of her religious studies. But she was never raised Catholic. She converted. So let me get into some of my spiritual experiences while people jump on. And I will, as always, if you jump on late in the live stream, I will have the live stream available on YouTube right after this broadcast is over. And then after the broadcast is over, I will also provide you links to these videos so you can watch the entire video interview. These interviews are 2 and 3 hours long, so I can only play snippets of it for you during this broadcast, but it's worth your time to watch these videos. I will say that again, it will challenge your beliefs. It will. All of this has challenged mine because no one could give me any kind of, I didn't want answers as much as confirmation that this did happen. So that was really what I was looking for. And now I find the confirmation in these videos that I'm going to show you. So let me set up the first encounter I want to talk about. And that will lead us to the first video I want to show you. So when I was 16 years old, I was trying to decide whether I wanted to be a nun or not. My great aunt, who I greatly admired, was Mother Superior of Spalding College in Louisville, Kentucky. And I visit her quite often. And she's the one that inspired me that maybe I wanted to do this. So when I was 16 years old and I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, the Blessed Mother appeared at the foot of my bed. So I'm laying in bed and just getting ready to go to sleep when this beam of light was at the edge of my bed, at the very foot of my bed. She was not very big, maybe 4 feet high, and she was hovering right above my bed, just hovering there. And bright white, beautiful, bright white, beautiful, bright white light. That was a mouthful. White light. And in this upcoming video, you're going to hear, he describes seeing, he calls her the lady, describes her as having the light of the moon. And I thought, wow, that was a perfect description of her. So it frightened me when she came and appeared like that at the edge of my bed. And then she was only there a few moments, maybe a minute or two. There was no words spoken between us, but I was frightened when I saw her. And she left. Now, this professor that you're going to hear from on one of the videos has described that a lot of the saints who experienced spiritual encounters were not in ecstasy. They were frightened by what they saw. Wait till you hear this. This will really challenge your beliefs, but I want you to listen to her, what she has to say, because that's exactly what I experienced. When it was over, you're sitting there thinking to yourself, that was incredible. Why didn't I say something? It was like I couldn't get it out of my mouth. Okay, fast forward to being in my 40s. I was in my 40s when the second time the Blessed Mother appeared to me. And I was out of the Catholic Church. Now, keep in mind, I was out of the Catholic Church, had 2 abortions, had the near-death experience, where I died and came back, given childbirth to my son. And he must have been about 4 or 5 years old when she appeared to me for a second time. It was the exact same way. I was in bed. I was laying there. I don't remember what I was thinking about. And this burst of white light, and she appears, and she's hovering above my bed again, at the end of my bed. This time I shot up out of bed, and I'm directly looking at her again. It frightened me. And I'm thinking to myself, what is going on? I'd be the least person she'd want to show up to. But I do know she was appearing to me for a reason. And this was the second time. Again, she kind of hovered, and then she slowly disappeared. And that's the way I experienced it. No words spoken. I didn't ask her who she was. I could clearly see she was the Blessed Mother. So the second time it happened, I went back to my priest and I said, okay, I know I haven't been a practicing Catholic. And this was a family friend of ours that was a priest. I told him what I experienced, and he said, if you were frightened, it was the devil. If it was the Blessed Mother, you would not have appeared frightened. Well, I later found out recently that that's not true. We're not used to seeing spiritual, supernatural experiences, so why wouldn't it frighten us? So hold on your hat while I show you these videos, and then we'll talk about my other spiritual experiences too. The first one I'm going to show you, his name is Chris Bledsoe. If you know of him, would you put it in the comments? So Chris was on the Sean Ryan show, and I remembered seeing him maybe in 2017 or 2018, but I had forgotten about him. And he never, at that video that I saw, he did not talk about the lady who he refers to as the lady. Chris Bledsoe has had many spiritual experiences. Oh, Nicole says you have his book. I ordered his book and I haven't gotten it yet. That's another story, Nicole. If you remind me, I'll tell you at the end. But Chris Bledsoe has an incredible story. So let me play you the first video. Give me a minute to get there. And let me say, the Blessed Mother has appeared to him on Easter every year since his first encounter with her. He calls her the lady. It's the same person, everyone.
There's no cow anymore. There's a woman there. She's about 3 feet off the ground. She's glowing just the color of the moon. There's a circle of light on the ground. And she looks at me and she says, "You know why I'm here." And I knew I was crushed, basically, because I'd had this overwhelming desire to tell the world what I'd seen. And then that night I cursed at the heavens and said, "I'm never doing that. I'll never speak again." And now she's like, "You know why I'm here. This is your burden you must bear." She said that. She said, "If you will tell this story, I'll always be with you. I'll allow you to share our presence with others and film us. So help me." I never had a picture of anything for the previous 5 years, only inside the house. When people see this or out in my children. Now everybody's coming to the house and it appears overhead. It appears around us. And it's greater today than it was then. And magic started happening. And when that word got out, then comes this government. They want to know about this lady.
Let's pause right there. I have questions.
Okay.
So the initial, what was it that you were handed?
I've been asked that a million times. I don't know. It was like a living creature.
It was living. It was moving around.
But it had no head or legs. It felt like if you had a squirrel in your hand or a hedgehog, that prickly, it felt like it was living, but it had no head or tail. And I asked the lady what this was, and she told me it was symbolic of humanity. Had lost its direction. Had no head or no tail. It completely lost its direction, and it vanished when I went
right
back.
On the money with that.
Yeah. Exactly. And she told me a lot of stuff that I never revealed to this day. I haven't revealed a whole lot of it because I don't want to sound like a prophet or any of that. I just don't. My goal is to share this story with everyone and share the phenomenon, which I have been able to do.
What did the figure look like that handed you the object?
It was a shadowy being, like a shadow being. So when you see these, you see this shadow of a human figure, but you can't really see the details. It's like a shadow. It's like a ghost, you might say. And I have pictures of these little beings, and they look like ghosts. I have a video of one of these beings coming out of an orb. Flash. And
Can I see that video?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give you one. It's 6 foot tall, 7 foot tall. And when it did that night, a young lady with me was healed from cancer. Wow. This happened in 2015. But so
what did the bull represent, do you think?
I had no clue. Remember,
you worked with Robert Grant.
Robert Grant is who I was with last at Contact in the Desert a couple months back, and Robert was showing the oculus to me about what he had discovered in the pyramid. So he put these goggles on and he does this LiDAR, and their biggest daylight is a bull on the side of the wall in the king's chamber. It only can see it with this technology he has, and the stars are inside. And above it is a helix of DNA. And then on the sarcophagus in the king's chamber is the Alpha and Omega symbol.
What do you think that represents?
Alpha and Omega is God, the beginning and the end. The bull is the celestial bull. To me the lady that came to me is the Holy Spirit, the breath of God, the wind, the Virgin Mary, Hathor, Demeter, Diana, Parvati. In every culture on every continent, they all have a mother figure. All of them, including the Egyptians. They believe in the Trinity. When you read the Egyptian stuff, it was, in the beginning, it was Pitta was the father, Met was the mother, and then they had it changed to Ra, and then Hathor, and then Horus. It's just the divine Trinity. They have a triad, and I think that the lady, the women, the feminine was taken out of the equation by a bunch of men in 2,000 years ago, and oppressed all the women, kicked them out, and said, "You can't be in the church. It's a boys' club, right?"
Mhm.
And so from that point forward, the women have been oppressed. They made to wear things over their face and head, and even up in the 60s and 70s. Me growing up, there was a great oppression on the women. But that's my belief. And, it doesn't matter in Christianity or in any religion. None of us really know. So,
And so, how did the government get involved? And what is it? Let me rephrase that. What is it that caught the government's attention?
okay. So now this happens at Easter of 2012. By,
Let me ask another question. I'm sorry.
okay,
Do you think there's any significance to this happening on Easter?
100%.
And what is that?
Well, you tell me what Easter means. And
It's the resurrection.
yeah, every year at Easter, either she comes back or something miraculous happens every year at Easter.
Melt sales objections with this book. I just got my black book of questions in the mail.
Every year since 2012.
Every year since then. Every year, including this year. And my son Ryan and his wife, and my grandson Teddy. Of course, my wife was a little bit scared, so she turned her head and ran in the house. But we all got to experience it this year at Easter. And exactly when I told them, at 8:30, it's going to appear. And we ran to the restaurant to eat, and I'm fussing, we got to be home. We got to be home by 8:30. And when we drove up in the yard, it was 8:30. When I opened the door, it appeared behind the car. And here it comes, this big glowing bluish white ball of light through the forest going in and out of the trees. It was approaching us, and my wife freaked out and ran in the house. But it's always something like that miraculous on Easter. And it just feeds more into my understanding of the phenomena, the whole thing.
Okay. So, as you can see, he talks a lot about a lot of different things. But the way he described, as he calls her, the lady, I clearly know it's the Blessed Mother. I totally believe it's the Blessed Mother that's appearing to him too. He described her exactly the way that I saw her, and he's the only one that has given me any kind of confirmation that what I saw was real and what I saw was supernatural and what I saw was the Blessed Mother. And he calls her the lady. Now, let me queue up the next video for you to see. This is a long segment too, so stay with me. And this is the Vatican connection.
You've been investigated by the Vatican?
Yeah.
How did that go?
Well, I was very sick at that time, 17 with Crohn's. I'm not Crohn's, but rheumatoid. It come on me. And I was on all this chemotherapy and these biologics. And so my professor friend works with the Vatican, got permission to go in the Vatican archive.
This friend that he's referring to is the doctor that I'm going to play the video of her next. So that's the woman that he's referring to. And as a result of all of these spiritual encounters that Chris has had, he also has the power to heal animals and heal people. And in his other podcasts that he's done, he's talked extensively about how he has healed other people and animals. He'll rightly tell you that it's not him healing, it's God that's coming through him and healing through him.
Well, my friend from NASA that I was working with from the NRO wanted to be a part, so he was allowed to go with her. There were 3 of them went to the archives, and when they were there, they were texting me and sending me pictures of angels coming out of orbs that are painted on the wall in the Vatican, and a message from the Pope that he said, we know that they're angels and that they don't mean you no harm. But if you get too close to them, don't let them get too close, because their energy can cause damage to your body. And in fact, we know that St. Francis of Assisi had an orb get too close to him and zapped him, and he died 2 years later from his wounds. And she said, we know for sure in today's lenses it was rheumatoid arthritis, the same thing you got. And so there's a lot of, I've got all the photos and stuff of that. You can see they had a ceremony in my honor. They put my picture in the Pope's picture at the entrance of the Vatican archives. They placed my picture between the books of Galileo and Copernicus in the archives to be there forever. So there's a whole lot that's going on from every angle throughout those years there.
Man, this is fascinating stuff.
Yeah. So now you know.
Why do you think you are the one?
I've been asked that 1,000,000 times, and I don't like to think I'm the one or any of that. I'm just a simple guy that had a miraculous experience that continues to this day. And
With all the government contact and studying and the Vatican, had anybody ever given you insight as to whether or not there are more human beings that have had similar experiences to you?
yeah, and they all relate them back to biblical times. As far as anybody now, I haven't heard, but there probably are. But they always use, St. Francis or these different people throughout the Bible that had these experiences with orbs. And, the reason NASA wanted to go to be a part of that.
Welcome to OCC Learning, an e-learning platform where investors can find realistic options.
Getting into archives, they wanted to study levitating saints. How come it is a person can take off and fly to the village next door? It really happens. People levitate. So there's more to this world than we got blinders on. We're blinded. And yeah, but we're awakening now.
Yeah, I personally believe that we are the ones that put the limitations on ourselves.
Exactly.
Everything may be possible.
Well, I think a lot of those writings that got into this more detailed early on were deemed dangerous knowledge. So that it was removed from us understanding all of this stuff. It's kind of like that was priestly stuff.
Where do you think you were for the hours that you disappeared during the incident in 2007?
Well, I can tell you I had no clue until 2008 when MUFON came and did the Discovery Show. They actually sent a guy from a Harvard-trained psychiatrist that does hypnosis, and he hypnotized me first to say we're removing this block, and then we're going to come back next week and find out what happened. So he did the first one, and immediately I could think about it and not pass out or have an excruciating headache. So what he did worked. And then my wife and kids started for the next, it was about 2 weeks before they came. They were startled because when I'd go to bed, which always went pretty early, they'd be up till late. I'd be yelling out in my sleep and screaming and talking, and they were in there filming me with cell phones and iPads while I'm doing this, saying stuff, weird stuff, like seeing beings and on Mars and all kinds of weird stuff. So eventually I began to remember some of what happened, not all, but what I can tell you, the 4 hours while I was gone was a virtual tour. I was inside a bubble, something that was solid that I could stand on, but I couldn't see the walls, but I could touch them. But I could see everything in every direction. And there were always 3 figures behind me that were shadowy, and they were narrating what I was seeing. And I saw North America from way up high. I saw the whole United States. And then I was taken to Egypt, and I saw the pyramids and this Hathor's temple. I saw that, the Sphinx facing to the east. And then the lady comes back the following year after all this. This was in 2013 is when I really got that message from her, because that's when I was asked by the Pentagon, by 2 Air Force generals, to put it in writing what she told me. And I did. And this was on a request from NASA, a friend at NASA. So he come and got it and hand-delivered it to these generals. And she told me that, she said that when the star of Regulus, she called it a red star. When you look at it, it looks blue. But she said when Regulus is red on the horizon, in front of the gaze of the Sphinx, before daylight. So in other words, when it's sitting right on top of the horizon, before the sun comes up, that moment would mark a change in humanity's knowledge. And she showed me other things: war, us bombing Iran, us bombing Syria. And in them days, none of that had happened. So I put all that on this piece of paper. And now I've had so many write me back, oh my God, you see, they just bombed Iran, or Iran just bombed us. You were right the whole time. And I did that in 2012. And so what they did was I gave them the date of 2026, because they took that celestial event and ran it through these machines that showed that exact alignment will happen in 2026 at Easter.
What will happen?
The alignment she told me about, that the star of Regulus would be on the horizon in front of the Sphinx. At that moment, there'd be a new knowledge. Well, I had no idea if this was even possible, but these astronomers run it through the machines, and it comes out that star is going to come up on the horizon in Easter of 2026. And from that point forward, they started remote viewing the state. Government did. And now you hear it all over TV. 2026, that's the big date. 2027, that year, something's going to happen. Armageddon, you hear it all over. You hear it on TV. If you study, like, I've heard even, well, I won't say names, but
Please do.
Well, you know Lou Elizondo, right? Lou's mentioned that date. A lot of people have.
Easter 2026.
Well, the year 2026. I gave him the specific time. And it was with Robert Grant that I told him about this alignment and all. And then he's like, oh my God. He's been looking for this ruby, this little ruby you have to find and place it between the paws of the Sphinx to make this event that he knows is going to happen in 2026. I said, Robert, it's not a ruby, it's the Star of Regulus. And he looks like, he's like, oh my God, it's the King star. So what's going to happen, I don't know. But I think it's possible that's the return of
Christ.
Yeah. Or the lady and the whole heavenly host living with us, Jesus. That's the first time I've ever said that in my life publicly.
Okay, let that sink in, everyone. Easter 2026, he believes by the messages the lady has given him that Jesus will return. 2026 Easter. And he's right. Everybody's been pointing to 2026. Even, Christians that are prophesying about 2026. So, like I said, this is going to challenge your religious beliefs in so many different ways. And the problem is, all of us, whether we're Catholic, whether we're Jews, whether we're Christians, we always think it's going to happen a certain way. And it may not at all, everyone. I mean, all I'm asking you to do is not to believe me, not to believe Chris. And one of my reasons why I believe Chris is because his spiritual encounter with the lady is the same as mine, other than she spoke to him and gave him a message where she didn't with me. So I'm not asking you to believe this. I'm just asking you to keep an open mind because, like I said, things may not be as we think they are. All right, let me get to Dr. Diane Pasulka. Dr. Diana Pasulka. She is a religious study professor, and she was not raised Catholic. She converted to Catholicism after her religious training in order to be a professor. So I want to play a couple of clips from her that ties into all of this, because this is exactly the woman that Chris Bledsoe talked about that went to the Vatican. So let me set that up for you.
So there are sort of two main archives that hold, there's lots of different archives, but the ones that hold lots of information about this, first is the Vatican Archive, and the Vatican, it used to be called the Vatican Secret Archive, but it's called the Apostolic Archive, and it's the Pope's archive. And you can't just go to that. You have to actually have certain credentials to get into it. And so I have those credentials. So I was able to go there, and I was able to look at the primary source material for some of the saints in the Catholic and Christian tradition that looked like had angel events or levitated and had anomalous activity. And I was able to look at that and assess the primary source data on my own, which is really
Wow.
fascinating. Yeah. So I did that work, and
Can you name one of the saints, or maybe a couple of them?
all of the saints. So once you start to look at the saints, you see that what is said about what was said in the very there are what are called primary source material. This would be some of the first material that comes out about that experience that saint had. Teresa of Avila wrote her own experience. That's what makes it so important, is that she wrote about it. It was later what's called redacted. It was changed by the church. She said she saw this angel and it wasn't a vision, it was in reality. And she said that it was short and it was shiny, and she was confused because it didn't look like an angel. And she goes, well, it must be a cherub, right? So she had confusion about it, and it had a dart. And she said this dart it took and it basically put it in me, right? So this looks like modern day UFO abduction reports. And so once you start to see those connections, you cannot unsee them. And you're like, okay, got it. This is different than how it's represented in the prayer card, right? Where it's beautiful. And I hope that I'm not offending the Catholics that are looking at this, and, because it's their childhood. They were brought up with these images.
How do you know it was redacted?
Oh, because we have the redactions.
So do you have the original transcripts?
Oh,
as well?
yeah, I have those.
Why would they redact it?
It didn't conform to their theology.
So
it happens all the time.
So
it even happens today.
I mean, I know it happens in government all the time.
Oh, yeah. It's standard. Yeah.
So are you saying that the Catholic Church just took a firsthand account and said, "Nah, this doesn't align with what we think, so
Yes.
we're just going to change it"?
Yes.
And then left the original transcripts in?
Yeah. Well, yes. Because people didn't read as much as they read now, and they weren't betting on us, going back and looking at it. And it doesn't matter to them now. They're okay with it. Literally, they're okay with it. They're like, yeah, we did that.
Okay.
Because that, they didn't do it today. They weren't the ones that did it, but the Catholics, after Teresa had her experience and told the priests that were her quote unquote confessors, those were like kind of like a therapist, they were priests.
I mean, it's just interesting because then it's. I mean, what else did the Catholics just change?
I think it happens in every religion, to tell you the truth.
I'm sure it does.
So, we can get angry at the Catholics, but in every religion, a person has an event that's a legitimate event that is profound for them.
Mhm.
And then they tell that event and it changes people's lives.
Mhm.
And then that religion is like, that didn't happen, kind of thing. They redact it. It's happening now with the UFO topic.
Yeah, I mean, it happens in all subjects. It's just weird
sad.
that they're okay
it's
with
sad.
it.
Oh, yeah, they're okay with it.
Yeah, we changed. But I'm sorry about that little.
No, I know. It's
rabbit hole
shocking. Yes, it's shocking what you like. This is why people had their faith challenged in that class I told you about. Their faith, boom, gone.
Yeah. All right. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're not. All of that is good information because your viewers are going to have the same questions. They're going to want to know too, right?
Mhm.
So that happened. So I decided to go back through the Catholic tradition and look at as many as I could. And lo and behold, it's like almost every one of them looked like that. And that's when I started to become
Like a little cherub?
Yeah, well, they looked different. They didn't look like what the angels we accept are. And a lot of times they were disturbing, like Joan of Arc's experiences, super disturbing. But
How were they?
okay, so she saw Joan of Arc. We all know who she is, right? Okay, so she's a warrior, a girl warrior, who was told by God to fight for the French, right? Against the English. Okay. And who told her this? So I'm like, who told Joan of Arc this? God, but did God come down and say this? No. It was first she didn't recognize what it was, just like in Teresa of Avila. And remind me to tell you about that, this lack of recognition, this confusion. So it's a being of light, and it appears in her father's garden, and it appears to her and says, Joan, Joan, you're going to be doing this, and she's like, what is this? So she doesn't take it seriously until it shows up again. And then she recognizes that it's St. Michael. And then it acknowledges that it's St. Michael, and that it's going to ask her to be a warrior, and that this is what she's going to do. And so it says, go tell this person. And she goes, and they listen to her because she has knowledge that she shouldn't have. She has like precognitive knowledge of stuff. And of course, when people do that to you and you're not suspecting it, you believe them because you're like, they do have special knowledge, right? And so then, she does all these things. She eventually gets burned at the stake. So that's why I want to say it's disturbing, because, she does take these troops into battle. She is victorious. It does give her military acumen. It does help her, but she also ends up being burned at the stake. So the question is, to me, is like, would I want that for my daughter? No, I wouldn't. So when an angel, do you want an angel to appear to you? Maybe, maybe not. So that's what I'm trying to say is like, it's a lot more complicated when you start to get into it. That doesn't mean that it should kill your faith. I mean, if you're a person of a faith, that faith should withstand looking into it, into it. So, so yes, that's what I did.
Wow.
That's how I got into the UAP thing, is that these guys were looking at it, but from the perspective that it's real, because they believe that it was happening and they want to know what's going on. They want as much data as they could get. So that's what I was doing then. I was providing them with this data. In the midst of providing them with this data, I started to work with one of the guys. And at the time, this is between 2013 and 2018, special access programs, reverse engineering programs, I didn't have that language. Nobody did that I knew, right? They weren't in Congress. There wasn't talk about this. The New York Times stories didn't break yet. So I was working with a person who was doing this, who wanted to know how to utilize these debris that that were being found, and I went to New Mexico to a crash site, alleged crash site, with Gary Nolan, by the way, and we found debris. And
What kind of debris?
We did. So it was me, Tyler, and Gary. And Tyler had known of this for years, like his whole life, and he was in his 60s then. So for 40 years, he knew about this. It wasn't Roswell, and I have a feeling it wasn't Roswell because it was the real place. So Roswell is probably like the camouflage place. And then, I'm going to be creating a lot of people are going to be interested in this topic, obviously. But yeah, so this is my experience. So we went to.
What did the debris look like?
Right. So the debris looked like metallic frog skin.
Metallic frogs.
Yeah, it looked like frog skin, but metallic.
Do you have any pictures?
No, we couldn't take pictures of it.
How did you get access to this place?
Okay, so Tyler, having amazing access, he's a guy who could get through an airport, didn't have to go through TSA. He was a guy who the IRS never audited. So he seemed to be above the law. So I describe him in American Cosmic. I was amazed by this person. I was very impacted because I'd never met a person. I didn't even know they existed. But part of what he did was he troubleshooted. I remember during a SpaceX launch that was crashed. And I think this was in 2018 or 17. It was crashed. His phone was going off. And astronauts, all these people were like, how do we fix this? He was like a guy who fixed crashed stuff. So he was, the Challenger crashed. He was on the team to figure out why it crashed. And by the way, Judy Resnick was his friend. So he had.
Who's that?
Okay. There's another part in there that she talks about what happened when she went into the Vatican archives. And she can go to the Vatican archives because she is a professor. And she sets it up by saying that, she had to request certain documents to look at from centuries ago. And she said that in the Vatican archives is 53 miles of material that have been collected. And she describes what that was all about and like. But Dr. Diana Pasulka, Chris Bledsoe, they both have worked extensively with NASA and the CIA. The government is very interested in what they know, especially with Chris, these encounters that are going on. And as you guys know, all of these drone activities have been going on all over the world. Who knows if they're drones or if they're actual orbs. But you may or may not remember this, but at Medjugorje, they actually had photographs of orbs that was no one could see them until they took the photograph. Then they saw the orbs in the photographs. Excuse me. Let me take a drink of water. I'm sorry that I did not upload that picture of the orbs that we discovered on a video, or I'm sorry, on a photograph that my son took. There were orbs in that picture, and I showed it in one of my videos. So my throat is dry, everyone. So I wanted to set all of this up for you because for a very long time, I have felt like the Catholic Church wasn't telling us everything that we should know about the spiritual side of us as humans. Maybe it was a sense of mine that there had to have been more because of the experiences I've had throughout my lifetime. One of the things that young, when I was young, even in my teenage years, into my 20s, I had a heightened sense of intuition. I knew what people were thinking. I would, blurt it out, not realizing that I shouldn't have. And I talked to a priest about this as well, and pretty much was told to shut it down, that it was evil, and I shouldn't allow that to happen in my mind. So I shut it down. I know that our intuition, we have it for a reason. For me, I feel like my intuition is my connection to God. You guys, I have talked many times about how I have conversations with God. They're not things that I've been asked to reveal. They're just personal conversations that I've had with God. But the truth of the matter is we all have this ability. We all have this ability to talk to God, to hear God, and to experience God in a relationship. I think that we could experience the Blessed Mother in a relationship, Jesus in a relationship every single day. I think we were meant to walk with them every single day, that they're right here with us, right there with you, right there alongside you every single day. And we've never developed that side of our spiritual side because I don't know about you, but I was always told it was evil. But yet these experiences kept happening over and over and over again. I do know evil. And I'll tell you this story. So in the condo I was living in, this was in the 80s, I started waking up at 3 in the morning with this heaviness over me. And it scared me. This heaviness over me. It kept happening and kept happening. And one night when it happened and I opened my eyes, I saw red, beady eyes staring back at me, and I saw horns. And that was definitely Satan. I knew it in my bones. That was Satan. I called the realtor that sold the condo to us, and I asked her, do you know who lived in this condo before us? She said she did. I told her what was going on, and she called me about a week later and said that the woman that lived there was a Satan worshiper. And in that bedroom, which was the master bedroom, that was the bedroom that she would do her Satan rituals there. So immediately I knew what was going on. So I called a priest to come and bless the house, and it went away. It totally never had that experience again at waking up, feeling this heavy presence over me with red beady eyes. So I know what that looks like. All these other experiences I have had is nothing like that. They weren't bad experiences. They were just confusing experiences, and they were frightening because, you're just not used to that, which is sad that we're not used to supernatural experiences. Now, Dr. Diana Pasulka, in another interview, went on, and I tried to find it for you guys, and it's like I just started going down this rabbit hole. Oh, you guys see little Husky? Husky, look up here. There she is. But I couldn't find the video. If I find it, I'll let y'all know. But she talked about that Saint Teresa had said that she was not in ecstasy when she had spiritual encounters. It frightened her. And Diana went on to say that every person that had a spiritual encounter said that encounter frightened them. So that made me feel better about my experiences, because I was always told by the priest that that was evil. And come to find out, that's a natural reaction when you have spiritual encounters, is to feel frightened about it. You're going to have to wait till I get done, sweetie. She wants to go out. So I'm telling you all of this because, as I said, it's not all like we think it is in our head. Be open to the possibilities that what Chris Bledsoe is saying and what Dr. Diana Pasulka is saying is a real phenomenon, and it's real, it's happening, and it's happening today. It's happening to people all across the world. All across the world. All right. So what are some of the other experiences I've had? So let me pull up my cheat sheet here. Okay. So I've told you about my NDE, my near-death experience. I've told you about that. And if you want to see another video, this is a video that I did back in, I think, 2016 or 2017 about my spiritual encounters. It's on my YouTube channel, so you can watch that as well. One of the stories that I want to tell you about is My son, when he was in high school, this happened when he was in high school. And I was getting ready to go to bed, and I heard girls laughing, this little giggling going on in the hallway. And I thought, does he have girls in his room? And I barged in his bedroom thinking I was going to catch him. And he was sound asleep. And I walk in and he goes, I heard it too, Ma. It was girls giggling. I heard it too. And I was like, okay. And the next morning we talked about it. And I think it was my children that's been around us. This isn't the first time this has happened. And I think it's my children that are with Jesus because of the abortions. I think it's them, and they're with us too. My son has had spiritual encounters with them as well. Not just them giggling, and this is when he's lived on his own, but he thought he saw them in his living room one time. So he's had spiritual, and he is far more intuitive than I am. But your intuition was given to you by God for a reason. And I really do think it's God's way of speaking to us, of warning us, of helping us navigate through this life. I really do. One of the questions I get quite a bit is, how do you open up that connection to God? Because we've been told that when you open yourself up, you probably are going to open yourself up to demons as well. So I have done this for years. Before I even pray the rosary, I ask God to be present with me, to surround me with his white light of protection. I have done that for a very, very long time. When I say the St. Michael's prayer, I ask St. Michael to surround me with his light of protection. Before I go to bed every single night, I ask my guardian angel to protect our house while we sleep. Protect us while we sleep, guardian angel. I ask you guys, I've talked about this a lot. I put my guardian angel to work. So they're there to help us. They're there to help us on this journey, because life isn't easy, is it? It is not easy. So unfortunately, we've never been taught how to develop our spiritual side, because we're actually more spiritual than we are human. So we have a human body, but we have a spirit and a soul. Do you have a relationship with your soul? Do you ever check in and ask your soul what direction you should go? Do you ever, talk to your soul about, what I ask mine all the time is, okay, what am I missing today? What is it that you are trying to direct me to do? So our soul is who we really are. Our soul is the essence of us. That's what I learned when when I had my near-death experience. Okay. So here's how I communicate with God. This takes a long time to develop. And the key is you've got to be consistent doing it every single day, just like you have to be consistent going to Mass. The holy days of obligation, praying the rosary. Praying the rosary is one form of meditation. I don't know. Can you guys hear her whine? She wants to go out. So there's a couple of things that I do. Every day I read the Bible. So I'll take the mass readings for the day, and then I look them up in the Bible and I read the entire chapter of where that passage came from. And then I take something out of that passage after I've read it, and I close my eyes and I meditate on that passage. Now, my meditations can be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour and a half. Many times I just sit down and I just ask God to be in my presence, to be with me. And I close my eyes and I go back to that experience of that near-death experience where I'm standing in the presence of God, feeling his unconditional love just wash through me, feeling the warmth of his bright light going all through me. And I meditate on that. And that's how I sit in the presence of God, is from that memory of that near-death experience. Now, if you haven't had a near-death experience, then just imagine the white light of God like I saw, and imagine it being warm, not hot like the sun, but just like a warm spring day, just washing over you. And just imagine, open your heart to the most incredible love you've ever experienced. And that's what I do when I sit in meditation. Our love here in this realm doesn't even compare to what you'll feel when you're in God's presence. It's undescribable. It's just joy. And the love is just undescribable. And so that's what I do when I sit with God, and I sit with God daily. So my practice is the readings from the Mass. I expand them in the Bible and read the entire chapter, and then I sit in the presence of God. And slowly but surely, you'll start to hear in your intuition, in your mind, subtle messages, because God wants to be involved in our lives. And if you don't ask him to come into your life, or when you're in prayer, if you don't ask God to come into your prayer, he isn't going to, because he gave us free will. So if you're not asking him to be a part of your day, he's not going to be a part of your day. That doesn't mean he's gone away. He's still, he is and always will be. But he isn't going to infringe on our free will. So that's why you invite him in to your life, into your day, into your moment, into your prayer. Even when I go to bed, I ask God to be with me. So invite him in. Invite him into your life. All right. Here's another one. So my mother was on my mind so bad. And this was long ago, maybe 20 years ago. And I called the house and she didn't answer the phone. And so I started to get worried about her, because she just kept coming up in my mind and kept coming up in my mind. And I called my dad and I said, I cannot come because I'm out of town on business, but I think something's happened to my mother, or happened to mom. So he left work and went to the house, and he found her on the floor, and she couldn't move. She had fallen and she had broke her leg and couldn't get up. She had laid there for hours before my dad came home and found her. So I bet you've had similar situations too. That's God nudging us. Hey, something's happened. You need to act on this. I bet you can pinpoint things like that have happened. Would you put them in the comments if you've experienced such things? Okay. Let me look at my cheat sheet again. I've got 2 cheat sheets going here. All right. Here's 2 more, and then we'll be done. I was on the road on a business trip, and I was driving home back from the business trip, and I was on a 2-lane highway, right? There was a semi truck in front of me, and there was a semi truck coming in the opposite direction. And the semi truck in front of me started to slow down, and my foot got stuck underneath the brake. This car that I was driving was a clutch, and I couldn't get my foot unstuck from the brake. And I was fastly approaching the back of this truck. I would have went right up underneath and decapitated myself. And I cried out for my guardian angel, and I said, "Guardian angel, please help me." The next thing I know, I was on the side of the road, not the brim, but the side of the road with the car turned off. I was shaking so bad. I have no idea how I got there, but all of a sudden I was on the side of the road and the car was shut off. And I was shaking so bad. It took me about 30 minutes to compose myself to start driving again. So that was an accident that my guardian angel absolutely helped me with. Then the last one, there's been many more, everyone, but these are the significant ones. The last one was when my dad was dying. And I've told this story too, but he was looking at a certain area in the hospital room, and I asked him what he was looking at. And I said, "Dad, do you see angels?" And he shook his head, yes. And I said, "How many angels do you see?" And he held up his hand, 5. And I said, "5 angels?" He said, "Beautiful, Christine, beautiful." And he picked up the rosary I had on his chest and handed it to me. And I asked him, I said, "Do you want me to say the rosary?" And he said, yes. So I said the rosary. And minutes after I had said the rosary, he passed away. I had his hand and I physically felt his soul leave his body. I don't know if you guys have ever seen someone pass away, but at one moment they have light in their eyes, and then once they pass and their soul leaves their body, their eyes have no more light. It's just, I don't know how to describe it. It is lifeless. I mean, he was absolutely lifeless. That was a real gift that he gave me, a beautiful death for my dad. And that confirmed again, he died in February 18th, 2013. And it confirmed for me again, the soul leaving the body. Just one more time. All right, everyone. Now I've got some pictures to show you. I hope this doesn't shatter your faith tonight. I will say one more thing. I know there's been a lot of talk in the Catholic circle about aliens, the UFOs being demons, and I don't believe that. There might be some that are demons, but for the most part, I don't think that that is what they are. And Chris Bledsoe even goes into saying that the aliens are distinctly different than the orbs and the angels that he's seen and the lady that he's seen. So I just wanted to put that out there. That's my belief, is that the UFOs, the aliens, are not evil like a lot of the Catholic circles are saying that they are. Do I believe evil exists? Absolutely. I saw Satan, so I know it exists. But again, I'm not asking you to believe any of this information that I gave you. Not at all. I'm presenting it as information only and food for thought. Okay. These things have never shattered my Catholic faith. They've strengthened my faith. Even the fact that the Vatican has redacted the storyline of saints because it didn't fit the narrative, that doesn't even shatter my faith. It confirmed what I thought all along, that it did. I'll tell you what bothers me the most than anything is the way Catholics are going after Catholics. That's what bothers me the most. Eric Sammons, the editor of chief of now I just forgot the paper that he writes for. He put out a post on X criticizing priests that go into church and out of church smiling. I mean, to him, that's horrible. I mean, why are we picking on this? If anybody would turn me away from the Catholic Church, it's that. It's this nitpicking that continues to go on, Catholics to Catholics. But all of this that's coming out, it just reconfirms the experiences I have experienced all my life and was told that it's evil, and it's not evil, everyone. So let me show you some of my pictures, okay? There's little Husky. I took that today. I was out running errands. I had a bunch of errands I had to do, and she was patiently waiting for me like she used to at the window. Now, when she was sick, she didn't even get up to bother to look. But since she's gotten better, she keeps running to the window and waiting on me, and it just warms my heart. All right. Now, here's the next one. I had a baby rabbit, a baby bunny that came and visited me the other day on my patio. So now I have had a squirrel, I've had a possum, I've had chipmunks, I've had a bunny, and then last night a cat jumped through my patio. I can't figure out how they're getting in because I have a privacy fence all around the patio. I have no idea how they're getting in, but they are getting in. So this is the wildlife that comes and visits me every day, everyone. All righty. So thank you for joining me. I'm still trying to get guests on. It's been crazy trying to get people on. But I've even reached out to Chris Bledsoe and Diana Pasulka. I doubt that they'll come on because they're pretty much booked on every podcast out there. So I do encourage you to look them up. These were on the Sean Ryan show. And as you guys know, I'm an avid follower of his, and you should watch the full interview to learn everything that they both know. And when we're done, I'll put those links at the bottom in the description area of the video. all right, on YouTube. So thank you all. Have a wonderful Holy Week. And remember, eternal life is forever. Got a plan? Our plan has to be Jesus. All righty. Bye-bye. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.